Amomanyoko so we ya son anamu. Kia kwani bato we atomoni o ya do monsi akwie ya o. Amomanyoko so we ya son bembemu o. Kia kwani bato we atomoni o ya do monsi akwie ya o. Kia se pa yanju o kia se pa yanju o kia kia sa pa yanju ka o kia ma se pa yanju ju o so si o lele ya si o lele o ya si o lele lele o ya si o lele yo si o lele amomanyoko so wi ya son bembemu Kia kwani bato we atomoni o abinyon do monsi akwie ya o. Kia se pa yan jijo mama. Kia se pa yan jijo re son ke. Wo kia ya kia. Kia se pa yan ju o. Kia ya uri money. Mo re tole se ma bembe son bi. Kia ya uri manjo e abatoni. Passion même oh Kia ya we money More tole se ma même pio abinyo be.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final edition of Tough Talking Thursday for 2023. Yes, you heard me. This is the last episode, the last time you're going to see Tough Talking Thursday in the year 2023. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be reflecting on 2023. That is our reflections of 2023 and resolution for 2024. Throughout the year, we have had the number of Tough Talking Thursday programs right here on Focus on Liberia. And I can show you just a screenshot of the playlist. We have a lot. And you can see all the versions of Thursday we have had for the year. Starting, and it's been quite interesting. So tonight we chose to draw down the curtains on Tough Talking Thursday for 2023. With me to do the reflection on 2023 and also resolution on 2024, I have Mr. Admeke Salif. He's our governor's advisor. Mr. Salif, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm looking forward to it.
Let me welcome Dr. Abdullah Dukle to 2023 reflection. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. Pleased to be here with you.
Let me also welcome the managing editor of the Patriots Diary, Mr. Kenan Wesley. Welcome, sir. You are muted. Unmute yourself, please. Mr. Wesley, unmute yourself, please.
Thanks, and good to be back, Dennis.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, sure. We hope 2024 will be a promising one.
All right, we are glad to end 2023 with you. Let me welcome Mr. Thomas Cannon to our reflection. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dennis. Good to be here to conclude the year.
Right. We want to welcome our viewers from across the globe. We want you to join us as we reflect on 2023. We're going to be picking up some subject matter to reflect on the year. What happened? How did it go? And what are we looking forward to 2024? If you have not done so already, please share the show, invite someone, and let's get started. Let's start like this, just by saying, welcome. We are glad that we're here. 2023 is over. So let me just have your initial reaction or your initial comment as we end the year. Let me start with Mr. Wesley. Been a while.
Yes, indeed. 2023 will be best remembered for the just ended general presidential elections that culminated in a runoff in November. And then we are on our way to inauguration on the 22nd of January 2024. There were a lot of other things that took place during the course of the year. We've had a government that inherited power for 6 years, and essentially Bobo president who has no history of relating to the press or speaking to the Liberian people, as it were, rather than through a pre-recorded approach to getting his views or his concerns aired. But howbeit, uh, a test of democracy in our country has proved that what we have referred to previously as an infant democracy is nurturing into a full-fledged democracy, and that's good for the small West African nation.
Thank you. Dr. Dukle, your initial, let me first hear your opening comment.
I think we can all agree that 2023 was marked by the election, the most recent elections in the country history, and the also disintegration of the weird political power in many ways. That it ends with probably the greatest number of government officials under his administration to be indicted by the U.S. government in history all around the world, but per capita, if you think about it. So there's one, yeah. So it's about the elections. It's also the failure of the CDC government in every way of possible.
Thank you.
That's the big things that I remember for 2023.
Mr. Salib, your opening.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a year. We covered a lot of grounds, I think, from the early days of the sort of political campaigns and conversations from the CPP, the political alliance that was not an alliance, to just observing and commenting on what the we administration did and other such issues, in Liberia, and just in the public square and the political discourse. I mean, it's kind of scary, the kind of cyber footprint we left out there over this year. But like everyone else has said, I think the highlight was the coverage of the election, some of the analysis that we provided for the political transition in Liberia. So we're looking forward to seeing that transition come sort of full circle with the inauguration of the new president. And let's see, God willing, how the new year will turn out to be.
Thank you. Thomas, your opening.
Thank you, Dennis, and good to be back here. I mean, if I reflect on 2023, looking back, it makes me feel that 2018 or 2017 was yesterday. Because, Liberia is a country of elections. Whenever we finish one election, we start to talk about the other one. So after the 2017 election, everything was about 2023. And here we are. 2023 started. The election was prepared for. The people went into the challenge. Too many things happened. A lot of analysis. Some came through, some did not go through. Political marriages broke down. People went to the elections. The second round came. And everything is behind us. So, like everyone has said, it was a year full of drama. But all the drama has gone away. And we are concluding the year looking forward to a new government in 2024.
Thank you. Let me remind you that in 2023, who remember our first program? The first Tough Talking Thursday was the state of election readiness in Liberia.
To our own, political party system in the country. We've not matured enough where we have political parties really grooming the next breed of, officers, public leaders.
So you like the title, right? The state of election readiness. We talk about the voters, political parties, NEC. And just as you have said, this seemed like yesterday and it's all gone. And one thing I'm proud of have preparing for the show, looking over, like Mr. Salif said, we have a lot of footprints covering the issues that matter. And we, as I look back, I see in my mind, this was a tumultuous year. There was a lot of tragedies, and just yesterday, we Tuesday, we saw another one, innocent lives destroyed. So 2023, bittersweet. We ended on a high note, as you said, with the elections, but innocent people keep dying from a tanker. But we want to welcome all viewers. Viewers, if you please join us as we reflect. So tonight, the format is we're just going to have a free flow as you reflect on what was important, what struck you, and as we look forward, what do we hope to see 2024? So, Thomas, let me start with you this time. Let's reflect.
I mean, for me, like we said, we ended on a high note, but when I reflect on the entire electoral process, I mean, I'm always looking at the issue of the people, because if you look at the Constitution of Liberia, the first article says that power is inherent in the people. And normally when the election year comes, we go out to the people, solicit their support for them to form the government. But then in between elections, you see that the people get lost in the governance process. We don't go to their farms to ask them about how we should develop the budget. We don't go to the farms to ask them about what do they really need specifically in terms of what services they need for us to be able to provide it as a government. But during election, we run after them. Even if they don't want to talk to us, we still talk to them so that they can transfer that power to us, especially those who are running for offices as politicians. So when I was looking forward to the 2023 elections, I really thought that it was going to be an opportunity for the whole issue of decentralization, the participation of people in governance to actually be elevated. But when I look back at all of the top politicians that were running for office, the statements that they made, the platforms that they developed, and I must admit that I didn't read all of the platforms, but I listened to most of the statements that these top politicians were making. I didn't really see any politician calling decentralization by its name to say, okay, let's make sure these people that are out there in Maryland, in Lofa, in other places, so that we can draw them in the governance process. And if I can step back a bit, when President Weah got elected and he brought this whole issue of power to the people, there was a lot of hope that that power to the people actually meant decentralizing governance. Looking at the history of our country, where we came from, with this kind of system of governance that is centralized, every decision making is based in Monrovia. So I always thought that this was an opportunity for actually decentralization to be picked up as a policy issue, to be integrated into the campaign, and then we see how we can move forward with it. But I really didn't see a lot of it before the elections. In 2018, they passed the Local Government Act. They passed in 2022, they passed the revenue sharing law. So I actually thought that President Weah himself, having passed these laws, and they were working to amend the Public Financial Management Law and the Liberia Revenue Code. So I really thought that he was going to elevate the issue of decentralization when he gets on a campaign trail as he moved from one county to the other. But I didn't hear a lot from President Weah. And so it left me a bit surprised that why did you then pass all of these laws if decentralization wasn't a policy issue that you were going to focus on? I also did not hear a lot from President-elect JNB. neither his vice president elect. I didn't hear. The only policy statement I heard about him related to decentralization was the issue of the electricity, that the LEC needed to allow players to come in, similar to the role that Jungle Water is playing in Nimba, which in a sense it could be decentralization, but in other instances, these kind of rules and responsibilities are given to local governments. So I really did not see decentralization being elevated. When I got the Unity Party platform, the first thing I did was to find the word decentralization in their platform. I also did not see it in the entire document that they developed. So if I reflect on the entire year and the entire electoral process that went through, this is one thing I thought was going to be highlighted, considering that we started working on this since 2006, 7 onto this point in time, and that Unity Party was the one that actually started it. But I really did not see a lot of it. Also, I mean, yeah.
Let's talk about that a minute. Mr. Salif, are you surprised? Because what I see that decentralization did not take center stage, but because are you surprised about that?
Yeah, I think people, Liberian politicians are afraid of not necessarily of decentralization, but devolution of power. Uh, People are afraid of, and decentralization, as Thomas will tell you, and devolution of power, they are similar, reinforcing each other, but they're really separate things, concepts. So you decentralize services, you decentralize governance, you empower local government structure and things like that, and then you say, is for example, you know what you see and others were doing to help the government, even during Madam Salif's last days, to establish county service centers, right? So that things that you will come to Monrovia to do, you don't have to come if you live Grand Jude, somewhere in Nimba, somewhere in Cape Town, and so you can receive high quality services in your localities wherever you live. Well, how do you do that? The government then is required to devolve power to some of the revenue, for instance, revenue that are collected from those places remain there, or some are even sort of uh, sent around the country in ways that those government services that have now been activated through decentralization are actually served. They're serviced. They have the resources they need to run some local government programs. They are able to keep some. The counties are able to keep some of the revenues that they collect, and loyalties and rents on some of the natural resources that are coming from these counties. So you're talking about several governance issues in this decentralization, in the devolution of power. In other words, send some power back with decentralization to local government, to local people, local structures, so that all the citizens don't have to converge on Monrovia in order to receive high quality service. And even that is the presumption, because those in Monrovia, you and I know that a lot of the citizens are not served. So it's government failure, it's governance failure. So I'm not surprised necessarily. What it is, again, as I said, I believe either they don't understand this idea of devolution of power through decentralization, or it's just a difficult political will problem where people are not really trusting of local authorities, again, because of our culture of corruption and impunity and how we run our public institutions. They're not inclusive, they're not strong enough. People don't respect the laws, and therefore they don't trust the system.
And Mr. Wesley, purely people don't want to leave power, right? Power is sweet, so they want to hold on to power in Morovia. Even we saw how this was defeated to reduce the term of the presidency. That even opposition leaders said, no, we don't want that, because when I get there, I want 6 years, I want 9 years. So I think this all boils down to power. People love the power, they love the perks of the presidency, they want this almighty or Kikon presidency in Morovia.
I think Tom started on a profound note, raising the issue of decentralization, and it is important to also find out the parallel he drew between the politicians on the one side and the people on the other side, going to the constitution and giving us the power so invested in the people, the power inherent in the people. That yes, today there is elections, but when elections are done, do those who inherit power go to the village where they have these farmers, where they have our people to consult them in terms of what the budget is going to look like, or what its coloration is going to reflect, as it were. And in an election situation, Tom, one particular segment of our society that failed to play its cardinal, or as it were, sacred role is the media. Because the media has a responsibility to set the agenda. But what our expectation of the media back home did not give us reason to believe that they were up to the task in terms of setting the agenda, because it is they who must refresh, review the various manifestos, and where they find gaps, they take the issues up with the politicians. We didn't see any such thing, except for John Colley in his Zimanen platform, who was working assiduously to ask some hard questions to the politicians during the course of campaign, during the course of elections during the period of 2023. And so, again, our partners have worked with the media over and over again, building capacity. But if the media is not able to do simple research, simple analysis of the issues, how do they elevate the issue when they are supposed to set the agenda? And that's critical. The media cannot be in the business of criticism when they themselves cannot live within the ambit of self-criticism. They must be able to self-evaluate serious shortcomings. Decentralization is the only way out of our democracy. Yes, the previous government under Madam Selly started in earnest with huge support from our international partners, commitment to decentralize. Why, like I've been saying, this devolution of power, why should people turn it into a taboo? It cannot be a taboo. That power, it is only going to be inherent in the people if somebody is sitting down in Greenville, Sino County, can decide who becomes the superintendent through an election, can decide who becomes the development superintendent in an election, can decide who are going to be his leaders when they can self-empower at that local level. What existed as service centers, Abed, but just a tip of the iceberg. Those are essentially services. We are talking about devolution of power, that the local people will not necessarily be consumers of the democracy, but they will be equally participants whose decisions, actions, and determination will be reflected in the way people come to power. Okay. And after a certain time, they can decide how those people get out of power.
Thank you. Dr. Dukley, so with decentralization being given so little attention during 2023, what are you looking forward to for 2024 when it comes to decentralization?
I think everybody has raised the same issue, why there's a disconnect between the counties or whatever, and the central government and the connection between them. Let's go back into history. In 1991, actually, Sawyer was forming his government, interim government, and he said we didn't need the Ministry of Rural Development because we did not have control of the rural areas. And every interim government since then carried it out. And in 2005, Madam Sirleaf made a mistake. She did not reactivate that Ministry of Development. Mr. Wesley was talking about the development workers in the counties. Those people were connected to the Ministry of Rural Development. Once there was no Ministry of Development, you had agents who had no connection to the central government. That was the breakdown of the system. So what we need to do now, besides all the problems we have, is to bring back the Ministry of Development, Rural Development, connect those agents in the counties to their agency, central agency that has a voice in the government. So for 18 years, we've been having development agents in the counties with no central position in the government. And that has been a problem because the Ministry of Rural Development was never, ever reactivated. Internal government let it go.
Dr. Duke, how is that different from the Internal Affairs Ministry?
No, the Internal Ministry was, okay, Internal Ministry was created in a colonial era to take care of the chiefs so they can support the colonial system. Period. Whatever you come up with, everything else is literature. The Ministry of Internal, that's different. Rural development was about, you send a yellow machine to every county. You have somebody taking care of the yellow machine. They take care of the little 40 or 50 mile of highway. And that's why the roads were practicable. That was the idea. But we left that behind. Because of the war, the government changes. So we never reactivated the Ministry of Development that allowed people to be in the county to have access to budget, to have access to machine, to take care of the roads, so the development agent can call the minister in Monrovia and say, hey, I have a problem at my ministry on this and that. So all Baka needs to do is to reactivate the Ministry of Rural Development in connection and working in connection with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And then you have that reconnection. Then you have the beginning, a real beginning of decentralization. It doesn't happen just like you say, okay, decentralization. Yeah, you want to decentralize, but you have to have a system in place, an institution. And that institution was failing. So that's why for 18 years, we never had it. So it's time for now the Baka to put back the Ministry of Rural Development, and then those agents that are in the counties as development agents have a voice into the government. And then have people elected, not appointed.
You are growing the government, Dr. Duke.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we have to go back into history. We have to reconstruct what was broken.
Thank you. Let me welcome Mr. CA, the host of our politics, to reflect on Tough Talking Thursday. Welcome, sir.
And it's good to be here. I'm happy to be here with these outstanding gentlemen. Wow, we didn't get a letter today. Anyway, let's do this.
Mr. Wesley, let me hear your reflection on 2023.
Dennis, can you give me 30 seconds?
Yes, sir.
So just quickly, on the issue of political leaders now wanting to give power. So, like Ahmed was saying, decentralization is broad. Deconcentration is also a part of decentralization, these county service centers. The critical piece, like he says, is this devolution, where we will actually define what are the roles and responsibilities of the local governments. And the local government law of 2018 actually legally established local governments. So Nimba County now is a local government. Lofa is a local government. We just need to define what they can do and what resources they will get. But when the PADP was developed in 2018, the WIA government was very deliberate that they weren't going to go for devolution. They are going to go for deconcentration, which we had done for the past years before they came to power. But the point I want to make is that when you take all of the power and concentrate it to yourself, and then in the end, the people take it from you. So by January 22, WIA is gone. Where is the power that he kept for 6 years? What does he do with it again? So why not give some of this power to the people and you all enjoy it? You give it to them, maybe they keep you for 18 years or so long. But if you come and concentrate everything in the executive mansion, they just wait for 6 years. And then after that, you are gone. So what benefit do you get?
Yeah, thank you. And that will be my reflection on the governance side. But let me hear from Mr. Wesley about his reflection, 2023.
Um, 2023. Never in the history of our country have we experienced any such thing called sanctions coming from outside to send shivers down the spines of people who are in leadership in our country than we've seen during the year 2023. A calculated attempt to paralyze, decapitate, and disorganize the Uyghur establishment. But surely they brought onto themselves what amounted to the decapitation of this organization. From the get-go, they have become a replica of the Taylor era that had joined the business of looting and pillaging the country, neglecting the mass of the people who are giving them power that they interpreted as power to the people. Well, little did the people know, just like Tom was saying, that yes, those who come to us to seek power get the power, and by the end of the day, there's a total neglect. But why did they have to take a foreign government to teach us some lesson or to be sensitive into us? Because our very institutions of state that we established, the GAC, the LACC, and all other institutions that should be given teeth to bite, turn out to be existing in name and not on the basis of the statutory tendencies that brought them into being in the first place.
Mr. Wesley, talking about the sanction, do you feel their impact in 2023?
There's a history of sanction in our country, and let's go to Vanish Sherman.
Right.
Vanish Sherman will not come to tell you in the open public that he cannot even have access to his money he has within and out of Liberia. So he's paralyzed. One of the best lawyers.
How does that help the country, though?
If we want it to help the country has to help herself.
Okay.
There must be a political will to ensure that Vanning, who's been brought under the spotlight by the sanction, is being used by our institutions of state to face the rigors of what he's been accused of. We and his people said they were going to investigate McGill, Bill Tuare, and Cephas. But they've never gone beyond reaching out to the Americans to access the information available to them in order to proceed with prosecution. Even Cephas, who's a lawyer, wrote a dossier in the local media enjoining President Weah to do everything humanly possible to prevail on the Americans to produce evidence. As though Silver, who was Solicitor General, is not aware of Weah, but was returning in his write-up to give the impression that he wanted Weah to take some action, when it took Weah a laissez-faire tendency to even relieve the three gentlemen of their posts. They in turn had to write some pseudo letter of resignation that Weah did not have the guts to do.
Yeah.
So certainly you can understand. But again, post-elections, President Weah gave President-elect Joe Barker a call. The mayor of the city of Monrovia, who's the Secretary General of the CDC, has been trumpeting violent rhetoric. After the sanctions landed, we are yet to see Mr. Koji returning to his vague press conferences with the violent rhetoric. That tells you that the sanctions are biting.
Thank you. Thomas, the sanctions, are they biting? I mean,
they are biting. They are biting. And like I said the other day, these sanctions bite people who have careers to protect. They are the ones who.
So personally, they are biting individuals, but is the country benefiting
It
from these?
does. It does. So, like Mr. Wesley was saying, if Liberia decides to do asset recovery, some of these resources will come back. But the greater good of the sanction is the fear that it creates in the system and for it to change attitudes in the system. So it's not that we have to, okay, getting the dollars back if they were stolen is one benefit. But the fact that we can now be able to, the sanctions can create a situation so that other people who are coming to government cannot be corrupt. It makes our governance system better because we have all said that corruption is one major issue that is undermining our growth and development. So if we can minimize corruption by even 30%, 40%, it goes a long way in improving the services that the common people will get outside Monrovia. It goes a long way in improving our governance system because I mean, much of the reason why some of these people were sanctioned was because they were undermining the governance system of the state. You have road contracts that needed to go through procurement, and people will bypass the PPCC and give the contracts to other people and get kickbacks. You got the lightening of the street from ERWA Junction to Morovia. Somebody will go and create a company, and that money goes to them. You had these road contracts that were not done in the county simply because you have a lawmaker that has a construction company. They will take the money and they won't do the work. And if the Ministry of Public Works speaks out, they say, we'll cut your budget. And they are on ways and means. What do you do? So I think the greater good that we get from the sanction is that it creates that fear in the system so that when people get into these offices tomorrow, they're going to be afraid. Anybody who's not heading ways and means, you're going to be afraid. Because Emmanuel Nukwe is an example. Even though it's not very clear whether he was sanctioned for his past behavior or the current behavior, but anybody getting on that committee now will be afraid of the public purse. And I think that is the greater benefit that we will get from the sanction. In terms of individual, like he was saying, Jefferson Koji is now more like a pastor. Every day he posts a one Bible verse. That wasn't Jefferson Koji. This was Jefferson Koji who was having press conferences every day and beating his chest that he was the king of Morovia. Samuel Tuer never had a Facebook account. He was using a fake name. Now his real name is back on Facebook and he's crying every day. So these sanctions are actually biting.
Thank you. Mr. Sie, sanctions in 2024. Do we expect to see more sanctions? Do we expect investigation? Do we expect prosecution? We see that people who were sanctioned, they won seats. And now President Weah is making new appointments. Tue and Koji were never fired, just like he did with McGill and Tuawe and Cephas. What do we look forward to 2024 when it comes to sanctions?
Well, Dennis, I'll tell you what I want to see. I want to see serious investigation taking place. And like the U.S. government has called on the incoming government to prosecute the individuals that have been sanctioned. The U.S. is making that request because the U.S. has, sufficient evidence in their possession to show that these individuals were involved in what the U.S. government calls significant corruption. And so I want to see that. Whether or not I should expect that, I expect something when I know it's going to happen. That's when I expect, like others expected so much from Weah. I was not expecting anything, so I have no expectation whatsoever in any good direction. So I want to see investigation in a serious way that people will be sent to court. And if they are guilty, they should serve the deserving penalty for their crimes. And that, in fact, the law should go as far as denying them the opportunity to serve in government again. Because if you abuse public trust, why bring you back to that public trust? I don't want to see people doing that. So talking about the sanctions, I think Thomas spoke very well and very eloquently on the sanction. But I will go further to say that the sanctions are deterrent. They are warning to individuals to behave well, that they didn't change attitude. And he said it quite clearly. What I want to see is that we should go beyond sanctioning these individuals and prosecuting them, and that when they are guilty of whatever crimes they're being accused of or for which they've been sanctioned, they can be denied the right to participate in government. I think that is the greatest deterrent that we can put into place. When individuals are aware that they will not have the opportunity to serve in government again, they will behave better.
But so, Mr. Sia, the people, let's say the government does not even believe, like for instance, the current we are government does not even believe these people should be on sanction. Even their people that support them, they don't believe that they should be on sanction in a way that this was wrongly, identified. This is witch hunt and all that. What do we expect in 2024? Do we expect people to kind of be on board now with this sanction and say, oh yes, you are rogue and you need to be sanctioned? And do we expect government now or those in power to say, gotcha, you're sanctioned, you prosecute?
I said it, Dennis, I want to see government prosecuting individuals when they are deemed to be corrupt and there are signs or indications or red flags that these individuals are using money that actually not money that they're earning. If you look at the properties that President Weah, for example, this man came to power and he started building homes all over the place. If he had the money, he would have done it because he wanted to do it in the first place. That's why he never wasted time when he got the money, right? So somebody that should be investigated. I'm not the kind of person that goes to the little man. I start from the top. We should be investigated. And if he's found guilty, he should be prosecuted for alleged corruption. I think President Weah is very, very corrupt. Dennis, I really want to reflect on 2023 because you asked the question earlier, right?
No, I will come to you on that. I'll come back to you. Let me go to Dr. Du to reflect on 2023.
Okay.
2023, so I'm going to start with saying to Anthony Sia that I watched his program yesterday or 2 days ago about how Cummings failed, what made Cummings to fail the elections. It was probably one of the most eye-opening programs I've watched all year long, because it was done from the perspective of somebody who supported Cummings and somebody who gave a real perspective on the whole electoral process. So I just wanted to give that to you. It was a really good interview and it was a very well discussion. And I hope people watch it, because then I think it points to a lot of things that people take for granted when you're doing politics in Liberia that you are not aware of, that you go in and say, I want to go help the people, but maybe you are the one who need help. So, I mean, that it was really, a great show yesterday. I think I watched it fully. And
I thought so too.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
2023, I think it's about, as I, say first in my opening, about one, the electoral process, the success of it, the drama from all the alliances and breakdown and all of that. And then on the other side, the flip side of it is the failures of the Weah government. The total failure. Can you imagine if Mr. Weah had been re-elected? With all these people under sanction, because the sanctions have been decided not now. They was decided way back in April. So if they were not released because nobody wanted to, impact the electoral process. They didn't want to release them and say, okay. But can you imagine Weah without McGill, without Twe, without all of these people, they run him? Who's going to run the government? So he was, so I think that's the biggest thing to think about, that how damaging this government has been to the country. The sanctions are effective. The sanction, when you know the relationship between Liberia and the U.S., you will say, okay, if you were with France, if France imposed sanctions on the whole of Liberia, nobody would care. But you're talking about the U.S., our number one partner. Either you like it or not, that's our number one partner. So if you're sanctioned by the U.S. government, you're sanctioned by Liberia. Because everything we do is, I remember in our peace process, everywhere we went, from Dakar, meeting with Abdou Diouf, Abidjan, meeting with Ufot Boigny, Soglo in Benin, they said, if America want the war to finish tomorrow, they finish it. because everybody perceives Liberia as that point of view. So you're talking about investment, talking about being taken seriously. If the US says Liberia is open, people will come to Liberia, including Liberians. If the US says Liberia is corrupt, like they did with the George Weah government, kleptocratic government, with all kind of names, from the White House, Congress, to everything you can imagine, saying this government has failed Liberia. And I think, personally, I measure the failures of this government to the one of Samuel Doe. The same pattern. All the institutions of the state become dysfunctional. Corruption becomes so rampant that you can't even see it.
Dr. Duke.
Yes, sir.
Without the UN sanction, how were you talking about the failure of government? So without the US sanction, how else would you know? Because it appears to me that you are looking at the malfunctioning government through the lenses of the UN sanction. What else can you tell us?
No, I can tell you. No, I can tell you. So, failures of government. You know when government has failed, because Liberian people voted Mr. Weah out.
But with a slim margin, 20,000.
No. I'm just saying. Put the U.S. government aside.
Yeah.
This is a president had everything at his disposal. Everything, the money, the media, everything you want, name recognition. He's been elected with 63% the last time he was running for president. So he should have won at least with 52%. He didn't win. So put aside I'm saying internationally, the sanctions work in that side. But locally, the Liberian people also have made a decision. Imagine now, we're talking about what is the percentage of electorate that are younger than 35%? That's 35. It's almost 60%. Who elected Boakai? The young people elected Boakai, not the old people. The old people are just 20% of the electorate. So the young people were inspired by Boakai to say, this man is a rogue, he's inept, he's corrupt, he's not a good president. And that's how Boakai won the elections. So look at the numbers. If you say 60% of Liberian people are younger than 35, that means the electorate, people who voted for Boakai, in the greater majority are the young people who saw through the lies and dysfunctionality of Mr. Weah. So it's not just the sanction. The sanction is the international impact of what it has on the country. When you have 7 or 8 people in your government, or you close allies being sanctioned by the U.S. government, and a U.S. government is your number one ally on the international market, political market, at the UN, at the World Bank, everywhere, U.S. is the one that says, yeah, you can give Liberia $10 million. Then you have a problem. So even if Weah had been re-elected, he would not have been able to govern because he doesn't have it.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, I was talking to somebody, say, well, the Liberians always look back. So if they look at Weah and they say, well, Weah is not doing well, so they went back to Unity Party. So based on what Unity Party is going to do, if Unity Party does not do well, it's most likely that they will go back to CDC, because this guy said Liberians always in the business of looking back. Do you believe that a true test or the true evaluation of the Weah government will come after Boakai, if based on what the Boakai government will do? Because according to Dr. Dukley, the government has failed. But relative to Boakai, do you believe that's how we're going to know for sure?
Not necessarily. And I disagree that Liberians look back and they like to look back. Liberians are looking for good governance. They're looking for leadership.
Back to Unity Party that was in power 12 years ago.
Then it's because there was no stability under President Weah. There was no proper governance under President Weah.
So they should be looking forward to somebody else, not back to Unity Party.
What do you call forward? They're looking for stability. They're looking to. They remember. Yes, if you put it sort of in a narrow context, that okay, because previous administration was Unity Party, people experienced some semblance of stability.
They never used to be like the Ellen time. did never happen Ellen time, you know, so that's why he said that.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. So yeah, again, because people enjoyed a relative sense of stability, whether it's economic stability, whether it's security stability, whether it's booming of institutions. There were problems, of course. I'm not here. I'm not a Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration apologist at all. But just given where we came from when President Sirleaf took over, and where she brought the country and what happened, the kind of confidence that was restored, and the respect Liberia garnered around the world, and the way they represented Liberia and did business. I think it was a proud moment, I will say. And Liberians have gotten used to that. The economy was not the best, but during that time, looking at some of the shocks that we experienced in the world and even in the region, and of course the Ebola and all of that, yes, one could say, look, we have better expectations. Our expectations were higher coming out of that kind of environment and context and what people have experienced, right? And they were hoping that power to the people, pro-poor, all the slogans, there was music to people's ears. They're like, okay, it looks like these guys are about downtrodden people, the masses, and they want to uplift people, lift people out of poverty. They want to bring about programs that will carry the country forward, that will really address poverty issues. And those were the kinds of expectations that people had, and they weren't realized. It was quite the opposite, I have to say, unfortunately. And so, yes, you then go back and reset. You hope that people who were in the early Sirleaf administration, a lot of whom were peer, I presume, in the Barker administration, some new people, learn something from that experience, and that it will bring better governance to Liberia. That's at least, look, if you can get something better, what you have before is better than what you're dealing with now. You rather go back. They say retreat, right? And so that you can fight a better war ahead of you, if I can use that analogy, right? So generals who retreat, they can live and fight another battle, kind of thing. So to me, that's not necessarily being a people who like to retrogress, right? They just wanted something that was better than what they experience now. In all, the point I'm making with this is people have expectations of their leaders, of their government. They want the government to deliver on the social contract. You came in and said you were the best of the citizens that we have, and that you will lead our country, you will solve our complex problems. You're not able to solve our complex problems. Instead, in fact, what we've seen is that aggrandizing behavior, self-centeredness, selfishness, just self. That's what people saw, and they don't want that. Okay, so if we can go outside of that, no matter who is president or who are the leaders, I think Liberians will embrace that. Just like any people in the world, they will embrace that kind of progress. It's progress that people are yearning for.
Mr. Thomas, yes or no? Do you agree with Dr. Duke that the WIA government has failed?
But we are not fair. He will be president.
Well,
we are fair massively.
Thank you. Let me go back to Mr. Sirleaf.
But I just wanted to make a point on the issue of. I don't think Liberians were necessarily going back for the sake of going back, but they went back to someone who they thought can move them forward. Because even though JMB was in the Unity Party government, and then this government came, they didn't audit, but he has not had this trace of really being involved with this issue of looting the public treasury. And that is the way the Unity Party marketed him, that he was in the government. But how come it is? And you can even see the kind of energy that the CDC brought to this election. Not a day they could pick up anything on him. So I think essentially they just said, let's pick this person who can move us forward. And then the whole issue of Alexander Cummings, he was, okay, the future, don't go back to these two political parties. Here we can go forward. But people are saying, no, you were brought into this country by Madame Sirleaf. We know what she did when she was president. So we really don't see you as a way forward. So I just wanted to add that point to what Ahmed was saying. And then initially on the issue of the sanctions, There are local institutions in Liberia that are doing a lot of work, but people don't pay attention to them.
Because nobody picked them up nor lay them down.
That's
right?
the issue. So if you can listen to your institutions on the ground, these sanctions are coming from the work that these institutions are doing on the ground. Like Center in 2021, they did a report on the Liberia national budget. And what that report said was that the national budget is a tool for laundering money. They just put money in that budget, and in the end, people take it out and do whatever they want to do. Nimot is doing a lot of work. They had even brought up a report on President Weah that he did not achieve all of his promises that he made. But people don't pay attention to these things, and the international community does pick them up.
Right. If we say on Focus on Labrador, they don't do anything until the year on VOA or BBC. Mr. Salif, let's reflect 2023.
Oh man, 2020, like people said before me, 2023 was a tumultuous year for many reasons. Was an action year, was a year of drama, was a year of tragedy, was a year of real sadness in a way. Would be an understatement, and I can decouple some of these quickly here. Look, the sanction people have talked about. We tend to look at these sanctions and individualize them and say, well, this one individual will not be able to access their resources anymore. They won't come to America. Their family won't come to America, particularly the ones that are the recent imposed sanctions, OFAC sanctions for a lifetime and family member, minor family members. I'm so, sorry for those young children there. But it's the sanctions, a shame on the country. It may not have been, Liberia as a country was not sanctioned, as it were. But in a way, if our leaders behave in ways that foreign governments will have to reprimand them, we have to sanction them for those foreign governments' own sake. In this case, United States of America, because of their own trade, economic interests, national security interests, they have to sanction our leaders who have no regards for their own people, who elected them, right? Who went rogue on their people, taking public resources for themselves, for their own good, they and their immediate family and friends. This is the sad state of affairs in our country. We have to face it. Sometimes when a corrupt person is their family member, people tend to think that, okay, this is not really corruption, or this thing kills a country. Look at where Liberia is. The oldest country on the continent of Africa. That country was ahead of China, ahead of other countries that we praise in the region, even in
South
Asia.
Korea.
It's South Korea. These were agricultural peasant economy. South Korea. They had nothing. People working on the farm. That's how come the long green rice that we import from there. That's how come they became sort of a hub, of an agricultural hub, because they truly followed that sort of Maslow theory of takeoff. I believe it was. Somebody can correct me here. So the point is, the sanctions are really sanctions of shame, of degradation against Liberia, because our leaders have not really realized that leadership is trust. And leadership is not just about title, somebody who was elected, someone who has the trust of another person, whether it's in your family, it's in your religious institution, whether it's leadership in leading a team at work, being the head of some kind of group unit in your place of work. You are a leader, because it takes the sort of the collectivity, the collective action of all of those people, all of those different institutions to take a society where it ought to be. It's not perfect. No society is perfect. But to me, the sanctions were the highlights for 2023, and that's not enough. More sanctions are coming. You can look forward to that. More sanctions that will even surprise people than what we've seen so far. That, and if you want to go back and look at some of again,
before you go to that next point, can you just jot it down? I want to bring your attention to something before you go to your next point.
Okay.
Because you talk about South Korea and all these people that have passed Liberia, right? I like when you Lamed, but This is not because of we are 6 years.
No, not at all. Look, yes, we will beat President Weah down, because he is the most recent president. And quite frankly, I said that the problem President Weah's administration had was that they are so incompetent that they are even incompetent at corruption. They're incompetent at being corrupt, because others who are corrupt, equally as corrupt, if not more corrupt, some of them are a little more competent at hiding their corruption.
Right, but Mr. Salif, that's perception issue, right? Because let's say
wait,
when
that is, you go in this category of saying corruption is perception too, right?
No, not that, right? Because when we look at someone, maybe who we think is rich still, or when they send their girlfriend abroad for 100,000, it doesn't raise eyebrow. But when Jefferson Koji does say, when we say, oh yeah, this is corruption, because we do not believe that Jefferson Koji has that money. So even the people we believe have the money, when they steal, we don't notice it.
No, but then it's just before Ahmed comes back. Mr. Weah had a property on 9th Street that was totally dilapidated.
Right.
He assumed the presidency in no time. He refurbished and modernized that facility. What is that?
But if Mrs. Salif does the same thing,
perception. Is that
if Mr. Salif does the same thing, we'll say, well, he has money.
Yes. Well, listen, let me go back. When President Weah did that, I wasn't quick like others to jump on him to say, oh, this is corruption. Look, I celebrate success. I'm not here to talk down successful people and success. Every day, if you look on my page, I inspire people, I encourage people to do well, to think outside the box, to be successful, do well, whatever that means to you, whatever success means to you. Go out there, do something, earn money, invest, start business, bring investment to Liberia. We have a ton of successful Liberians outside of Liberia and inside Liberia. There are people who have legitimately earned income and resources. We're not against that. Look, President Weah was a successful athlete, and he made a lot of money out of that. I'm not here to assume that all of that money just went away before he became president. Maybe his problem was public relations. It was timing. You become president today in a poor African country, boom, you start to renovate your home. You start to build new homes all over the place. You start to fly around in private jet, things like that. Of course, people will question the sources of those resources that you're using to develop your personal property and personal real estate and personal lifestyle. People will question those, and rightly so, because you are governing in the midst of abject poverty. I mean, our country is a poor, rural country. Not poor in the sense that we don't have people, we don't have resources. We do have them, but poor in terms of governance, poor in terms of mindset, and many other things that have dragged us down. So if you behave in that light and you're not showing us that the money you use to renovate your home, to build new homes, to fly around private jet, that those were legitimately earned income, if you can't show that, you can't even publicly declare your asset. You declare and then you keep it private because the law says that could happen as well. And then we begin to question. That's where we'll start to question. It means you've given people an opportunity to live in that perception, and then question you, and then sort of brand you as corrupt and so on. But to me, beyond that, they did things that were very brazenly corrupt. I mean, you could go and sing that to somebody who is not from Liberia or who doesn't know how things work in Liberia. But there are things, for example, and they justify it, right? If you went and took donors pool fund that is set aside as sort of reserved for them to work with your system, without going to them, without prior approval, if you could take donors' resources, they have to actually publicly issue a letter to shame you. To me, that leaves a lot to desire. And there are many other instances we can talk about. Individuals whom we knew barely could afford a $3,000 used car to drive themselves around. All of a sudden, they're living in affluence, the lifestyle and things they're doing. And then they can tell you that, listen, this comes from a legitimate source. If you fail to show me that, I can simply say, look, I have reason to believe that you are corrupt. That's what happened when I said they were so incompetent at being corrupt. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Because others have come around and said, "Oh, listen, this is how I got my money," even if they stole it from the public purse. But these people were not able to live up to the pro-poor mantra. They were not able to live to the power to the people. Pillar 1 in the CDC sort of manifesto, power to the people. Look in the PAPD, power to the people. Thomas has read that document, and so have I. So have many others watching and listening tonight. To me, all of these things and the way they appointed people, the way they failed to reshuffle to really ensure that they were transparent and very sincere about governance. Yes, when people say they are corrupt, I will join those people to say I have reasons to believe, until they can convince me otherwise, that they engage in brazen corrupt practices.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you want to call me anyway.
No,
but
I'm not gonna
we are talking about U.S. sanctions and corruption. There's a case going on now at the legislature that I want to bring up on the table. That you have direct sanctions. People say, well, we put sanctions on you. And then you have indirect sanction and say, we know what you are, so we can deal with you. Mr. Funati Kofa now is poised to be the next speaker. He has issues with the U.S. justice system, where he has been disbarred from practicing law. I want to know what is your thought on that. Because he's going to be the speaker. He's going to come to New York or Washington to talk to the Speaker of the United States and get Liberia money or help or whatever it is. They're going to Google him before he gets to Washington.
Right.
So I want, these are real practical issues. So can we talk about this? Or nobody is.
Do we have any history of our speaker coming here to do business, talk to people about money?
Not since Turbo time.
Right. So we have gotten used to that, right? And Dr. Dukla, that plays into the resolution for 2024, right? Because even as he becomes speaker, so yeah.
Dennis, I'm yet to reflect on 2023. I'm still waiting.
Yeah. You'll be waiting. I'm coming. I just wanted to speak to what Dr. Dukla said. I want to ask you, okay? Mm-hmm. So yeah. looking at I'm not talking about corruption, incompetence, failure, Dr. Du, Mr. Wesley. So as we go into 2024, Dr. Douglas has raised another point about Speaker or Deputy Speaker Funati Kofa. How does that play out for 2024? I mean, and we still have sanctioned officials who are senators. What we're going to do now, Mr. Weah is appointing new LRA boss, as I learned. So there are a lot of things happening, and these things we're going to set the stage for 2024. What Waka is going to do.
Dennis, if I can quickly, let us establish that we have to start from somewhere. For serious accountability, we must start from somewhere. Bwaka is well positioned to give us that start. Looking at the fact that he has advanced in age, one can assume that he may not want to seek a second term. So he should be more about legacy, more about setting examples or building a foundation that we can build on. One can only, wish that he will come to that. We must start from somewhere, but you want me to comment on the issue of Funati Kofa. Funati engaged in bad behavior in the U.S. here. He was held accountable. I understand he went to jail, he served a term, and he went to Liberia. He contested. The Liberian people, I'm not sure if they were aware. The people of Grand Crew, I'm sure they heard it, but they elected him anyway. And to be speaker or deputy speaker in Liberia, fellow lawmakers won't elect you. Now, the lawmakers in Liberia will assume that those are individuals who follow the issues. So even if the citizens didn't know much about Franti bad behavior in the past, they should have known that we can't make this man our leader because he's a bad example. He engaged in bad behavior. But the leaders chosen by the people to represent their best interest, to raise the flag of accountability, chose someone who was guilty of serious crime. So, Dennis, it brings me back to the point we need to start from somewhere. Can we not trust the lawmakers to hold anybody accountable when the one they are forced to make speaker is somebody who was guilty of a crime? I mean, what best decision can they make now? They have chosen, I don't know, should I say a former criminal? I think he's still a criminal because he has that record. Those records are still on the docket, I would think. I mean, right? So he's still a criminal. This is the man they chose to be their deputy speaker and forced to choose again to be speaker. Can we trust these people that will exercise best judgment? I mean, no wonder why they always haven't had time to even call Samuel 12 because they chose a criminal to be a deputy speaker. Look, we must start from somewhere. And then the best we can do is to really exercise our laws in a very serious way. And the executive must take the lead here because according to our system of government, the executive branch of government enforces the laws, right? So if the executive branch of government is able to enforce the law, then we'll be getting somewhere. Imagine Bouakai, being Bouakai. I always said that he has to be Bouakai. He has never been Bouakai. I know Dr. Du will not want me to say that. He has been his own Bouakai, but the name Bouakai stands for something, maybe, I think. So that's where we need to start, Dennis. And if you don't mind, I can really reflect on 2023.
Yeah, let me hear your reflection.
Thank you. Look, 2023 was an interesting political year. I will focus on the politics a little more and not more on governance because our governance consultant is here. I know nothing about governance other than to make my late noise. That's why we got him here for. I understand he's getting a lot of calls too. Thank you for the good job you're doing. I mean, I'm learning a lot from you. So reflecting politically on 2023, what I saw then is was political glorification of our leaders, which is sad and is nothing short of sycophancy. I mean, all those that support President Weah will never care. They never care about bad judgment, bad decisions, corruption that he was involved in. They came to his defense to justify, to insult others, even though they knew that they were very dissatisfied with the things that he was doing. It was not only on the Weah side, it was with the other political parties. Whenever one raised a question of accountability against any of their leaders, they will come to that person's defense and go against the person who is raising that question of accountability. They will glorify that leader. So Cummings were being glorified by ANCers. You couldn't raise any issue that would point them to the direction where they would do better. And that's why Dr. Du was talking about the show I had with Munir yesterday. It was eye-opening. This man was able to say the things that we said along for which they came against us and insulted us. I did a show periscoping Cummings, and the guy came to me and said, well, Anthony here is putting out rent against Cummings. So another guy who then will watch the show, he jumped there and started saying, I said, well, go and watch the show and point to me one anti-Cummings brand that I mentioned in that show. They couldn't point it out. So some of these people will not even know what the person have said, but they will come against you. Political glorification, which is nothing but sycophancy, was very, very bad. Political militancy was another thing. The youthful population, those of them who are active in politics, have been completely militarized, politically speaking. And they are not learning anything. The political parties are not teaching these young people how to even debate. They're not even teaching them how to write speeches. No political party giving any of them scholarship to go abroad and learn. They're not mentoring them to become leaders to replace them. But they won't be militant, they won't be bootlickers. I understand Samuel 12 and others were giving these young people a credit just to call on the radio and insult other people. That brings me to the issue of insults. Insulting others now is advocacy in Liberia. I don't know whether it started on Ellen Johnson Sirleaf because I understand seditions were insulting Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. This is what we saw. So Dennis and myself, who don't insult, who bring Ahmed, Dr. Duke, Kane and also Wesley for us to debate the issues, to analyze the issue, we don't get the traction. Go to the places where they are insulting in people. So those who get the attention, the Liberian people follow that, are those who are bent on insulting fellow citizens, exhibiting bad behavior in public spaces. This is all we see, to the point that a Costa became so popular in Liberia, mainly so because he was insulting political leaders, including JMB. So this is what we saw in 2023. And then I will not forget about corruption. For CDC, corruption was on a whole new level. They were very reckless with their corruption. There was one CDC official, I think this guy was assigned at the port in Buchanan. That guy had US dollars in his hands, and he sat in the car and took picture and put it on social media. This is an official of government collecting government taxes with that huge amount of money in his hands. In no time, corruption happened there. Batewell was implicated, and he was trying to fend all that off. Then another official of government, he bought his girlfriend a car. I believe that car was Infinity, one of the Xfinity he bought. Now he bought champagne, and they were pouring champagne on the car publicly for others to see. Recklessness, insensitivity to the highest level. Now, Nathaniel Magé became the king. And President Weah sat there, he said nothing. Magé will pay a Mussolini for his monosompo, said he installed Wi-Fi. So, and then we saw these people building homes everywhere. Did we not see corruption in early Justice administration? We saw that. Amen was right. Said, well, maybe they were a little sophisticated with their corruption and all that. That is not a justification. I believe they stole more money than the folks in the CDC. So, Dennis, I will land on minimalism. They who are dead about doing small things. Yeah, they has not been done before. Joshua is putting what you call solar panel lights in Grand Crew. Let the people celebrate. The people who have not seen anything, they will celebrate it. But is that the best way to serve our people, to provide electricity for them? I'm not saying solar panel lights, are not good. They are good, but are they on right now? They are not on. They just went there, complete showmanship, and this is all that they have done. When President Weah built that 1 mile road into a community, there was a statue, erected there to worship him, to glorify him, because he has built a 1 mile road. Ellie Justice left. RIA, that has been a major role, she left it and did not build. That was a failure. Even the very airport, the Chinese have to give her about 58 million, if I'm not mistaken. She did not complete that particular project. 12 solid years they didn't complete that project. Why they didn't complete that project? So all of our leaders, I mentioned the issue of percent, I think economy, that's the word he used, for places like South Korea, and today their economy booming. How could these people be able to do this thing in about 15 to 20 years, and we have not been able to do it with all the resources we have? The problem have been our leaders don't think big, and they don't know how to develop our country. It's sad for us, and we have another administration. I will be surprised if they don't fail us, but failure is written on the wall. That's all I see. I'm sorry.
Mr. Wesley, Anthony talk about glorification, where we worship. I wrote somewhere, I said, we set these people up as gods. Now, when they start demanding for us to bow down and worship them and give our daughters and sons as burnt sacrifices, then we start to complain. We glorify these people. So of late, and this glorification, political parties or opposition political parties also were worshiping their leaders. They do no wrong. So President-elect Bouaka now is in power, and has he get to Liberia and we see this big celebration? I'm reminded, is this Weah 2.0? Well, what is it I'm seeing here? Bouaka is in church this time. Everywhere is celebration. Celebration is good, but are we still seeing some level of political glorification as we go into 2024 with President-elect Bouaka? I mean, when he went to get the certificate, that was another huge program. Things that people are supposed to just walk in and walk out.
I think it is high time that the people of our country begin to see things differently. For far too long, we've had leaders who carried a tag associated with glorification when the expectations of the people dismally were not met. And it has to do with the leader. If the leader discourages the people from pursuing the act of glorification, it's going to stop. It is the leader who must tell the people the function at the National Elections Commission is a very civil one. We need no choir store organized for cheerleading or turning ourselves into some political rally. The elections have come and gone. Our people are concerned how the farm to market roads will improve, how the education system, the health system that becomes wretched will turn around. The cheerleading will not solve our problems. We must have, just like Asoni said, we must have a startup plan to end all of these things. Because the moment the issue of glorification begins to take the center stage, for God's sake, the leader will get distracted. The leader will tune into the radio station and want to listen to people who are praise singing him. When the RIA road that we have started is not going anywhere, and we need to start talking to partners who can help us to give us a far more decent thing than the national embarrassment they've caused us on that road. These kind of glorification are not tenable. They've never helped us in Charlie King Town. They never helped us in Samakayando Town. They never helped us. When you came on you came apart, we'll vote for you. It never helped us when you know both, we vote for you. Those are all vain glorification. Vain glorification that somebody came from Gibraltar, he understands the issues of the people, he's a reflection of the mass of the people. He became a total embarrassment to not just himself, but the people of Gibraltar. That vain glorification must end. And like you said, it has not only got to do with the establishment in power. Even opposition people are some of the worst example perpetuating this whole idea of glorification. Why somebody in the ANC, in the name of the doctrine of criticism and self-criticism, cannot tell Mr. Cummings, say, Mr. Cummings, I'm not sure whether it's going to work this way. But all coming out of Mr. Cummings is, oh yeah, that's a fine idea. I think it can work. That's foolhardy. You tell if you love your leader, you tell him what he ought to know and not what he wants to hear. And this is how we spoil our leaders. Our caution, our note of caution to President-elect Bouaka is that he must begin to take action, one serious political action, to stop this vain glorification of our national leaders. We had it ever so long. Tottenham will bring the chiefs to Monrovia to tell him, say, it is you share that we've got. No other man on these shows can be leader. And they continue with Samuel Kayando. The army came in, and we started to have all kind of youth groups, all kind of people singing the same song. Though it's the best thing we ever had. Recently, we are with the best president since 1847. What? Tell me, for God's sake, we are the best president since 1847? When we cannot even communicate with the people he's governing? What a shame. This glorification must end. And Bouaka, you got to have it on your plate.
Thank you. Let me reflect on the justice system. During the course of 2023, we saw cases, we saw drugs, arms. We saw people going to court, people not trusting the court system. I mean, of late, we saw cases that are being prioritized over other jury selection, all kinds of things happening. One that really caught my eye is how we put people on the Supreme Court. Of late, we've heard that President we had nominated his justice minister. What I'm used to, or maybe I've been in America for long now, is people when they are putting them on the bench, and Mr. Salif, you can keep me honest here, is they look for judicial philosophy. What does this person stand? What does that person stand for? The cases. What is their opinion on these cases? If you look at the appointment or the nomination of my own Sino brother, Councillor Joseph Nambwe, I mean, we're taking hardcore partisan politicians and putting them on the bench with no record of any judicial philosophy we can look at. We only looking at who's going to support me. What if this case goes to the Supreme Court? What are they going to say? So that's the person I'm going to pick. I mean, let me start with Mr. Salif here. The picking of our appointing associate justices, in your view, what has it been based on since Ellen time till now? Or let's just limit it to 2023.
Well, Dennis, every society, has traditions. Every society has history. Needless, I say that to you because you all know that you all learned people, right? I'm not mean to lecture you on that. And in our system, people who have worked the system, have studied in the system, have worked in the system, we may criticize it because we are exposed to other systems, we live in other jurisdictions or other jurisprudences. But when you talk to jurists in Liberia or lawyers in Liberia, legal practitioners in Liberia, they will tell you this is the system we have. You have to respect it. You have to work in its ambience. You have to learn its traditions, its history, and its practices. I mean, there are limitations. There's a long list of limitations or things that we will hope to improve or to see improved, right? And for example, the judicial philosophy question, I had a problem. There was a major, I think it was the recent Chief Justice that was appointed during her confirmation hearing. She said she didn't have a judicial philosophy. I was shocked. But, I reflected upon that and said, hey, okay, so it will be a huge issue in America. It will be unheard of because there are major judicial philosophical questions or societal issues, right? So the Supreme Court, for instance, when the Supreme Court decides a case or speaks on a particular matter, that has reverberation across the society because everybody ought to live by it and its precedent. It makes law. Law students have to study that in the first year classes and things. Some constitutional lawyers will play with it to see what the Constitution says, that the court interpret. It's huge. And therefore, you ought to have some kind of philosophy. There are even societies here in America and other advanced societies about just a particular judicial philosophy. And they run with it. They build around that. That's their belief that that's the way the society ought to function from the perspective of how, the Constitution, what the Constitution, the original, the framers intended for it to be. So, for example, in the U.S., there are those who say that you must follow the original intentions of the framers of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. There are those who call themselves interpretivists, that the Constitution is a living document. It's not meant to sit there to think about what somebody thought about back then. It should be a living document according to how society evolves. The constitution should survive and evolve as well. So the interpretivists have a philosophy, multiple philosophy around just that school of thought alone. The original intentionalists, multiple philosophy, legal, judicial philosophies around that alone. And then so somebody who went to law school and came and practiced and became a senior jurist or judge or whatever must have some kind of interaction with those different worldviews. That's what they call philosophy. And therefore, their practice, their thinking is framed around that. Okay. In our system, if we start to hold our judges, our legal practitioners against these kinds of systems that we learn in other societies, I think it'll be an unfair imposition. What I ask for or I look for is some kind of standard that is decent, that is in the interest of society, because any law that does not have a good public policy underpinning, that is not good for society, for the well-being of society, that promotes good public policy is law, is bad law. And so I look for some kind of standard. If you say this person, for instance, the Councillor Musa Dean nomination, for example, I've been talking to people today, and I know the man too personally. I've interacted with him. I know him. And, this is a strong Liberian lawyer in the context of Liberia, well respected. He lived in Liberia throughout. He studied there. He has done other professional work before he went to law school. He's gone through the whole system. So this would be the apex of his career if he were to be confirmed as an associate justice of the Supreme Court. In all societies around the world, that's what lawyers yearn for in their lifetime. You will reach there, you've reached the limit of all limits. And what President Weah did, you may not like it, but it's not unconstitutional. We've seen it in the US here because we always draw our examples on the United States. Look at what President Trump did, right? You can make last-minute appointments just as you can pardon people. You are still the president. You still wield the full weight of the presidential powers. That's what he did here. Now, it's about consent and, advice and consent of the Senate, the first branch of government. That first branch of government may say, no, we do not agree. We advise you otherwise. This person is not suitable. The timing is wrong, and they say no. Then that's still constitutional. Okay. When Obama appointed, what's the name?
Governor?
Yeah, no, not Governor.
It's Governor.
The Attorney General. Who's the Attorney General now on the body?
Eric Holder.
No, not Holder. They didn't come. What was it? Mitch McConnell said, no, it's too close. We should wait for the new president to come. They delayed. The Senate didn't even take action on it. And people didn't like it, but it was constitutional. So that's my view on that, right? I mean, there are other things with the judiciary and how a system, security, protection, fairness, corruption, and training, I can talk about sometimes. With this particular one, I let it slide. I mean, I like it, but yeah.
Can I come in?
Yeah, Garland. Yeah, before you come in, maybe if they were maybe former judges, then we look at the cases that they have decided. It will give us an idea of where their thinking is, even if we don't call it judicial philosophy. But these are just big time politicians. Doesn't that scare you?
Well, Dennis, give me an example of a major Liberian law case that you follow as a non-lawyer citizen that's popular, is famous, that you know. In the US here, people can cite Roe v. Wade. It's a big philosophical question. People can cite the Board of Education. It's a big, people can cite all kinds of famous decisions, landmark decisions. I'm not suggesting we do not have landmark decisions in our system in Liberia. We do. But sometimes even the lawyers there don't even cite these cases. What they cite is the Constitution, because that's kind of how they practice the practices, right? And that has to do with what they call here the reporter system. We have similar structure in Liberia. We have various magisterial districts. We have judicial districts, just as they do here in the US. And these people have how their cases are reported and documented and how you follow them. You ask the ordinary citizen, they can't remember any famous case. Maybe there's some kind of criminal case that was popular, but that's it.
I mean, the lawyers remember. Dr. Dukley, you wanted to say something, but
I wanted to say something. I think it's, this is like we are discussing something that is not supposed to be discussed, because Mr. Weah is the first person to tell us that Justice Nangwe was retiring. We never saw a lot of retirement. We never saw anything from the Supreme Court that said that there's a vacancy. So why are we discussing Mr. Weah, Mr. Musa Dean's ability to be justice? That's not even a question. Ahmed, I like your lecture, but it's really not relevant. Because publicly, Liberia has never known that Mr. Nagbe was resigning. We never heard that he was retiring.
So that's a good angle that you brought. That's why we're discussing it.
Yeah, the president has nominated someone, Dr. Duque. That doesn't mean anything to you?
No, the president nominated him. He nominated someone. But was there a vacancy in the Supreme Court, legally speaking? No. Mm-hmm. There's no vacancy. Mr. Nagbe has not resigned. He has not left. He has not retired. Supreme Court has not notified the president that there's a vacancy. So this is a no issue. This is the kind of thing. No, please, Mr. I listen to you. I listened to you 15 minutes. You made your case. If I know Musa Dean, very long time. I'll be the number one. I'll put the number one vote for him to be on the Supreme Court. But I'm saying what is not done right is not done well, is not done at all. We have not heard from the Supreme Court that there's a vacancy. We have not heard from the Senate to the president and say, Mr. President, there's a vacancy on the Supreme Court. Why are we discussing this issue? This is why we get in trouble in Liberia, because we keep lying. We take lies and we take them and say there's a justification for it. Mr. Musa Dean's qualification is not the question here. The question is, was there a vacancy on the Supreme Court? No.
Thank you. So my reflection was the justice system and how we put people on the Supreme Court, how it's not based. I don't know if it is based on any judicial philosophy. That's what Ahmed was speaking to.
Then
I wanted to go to Kenneth first before you, Mr.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Kenneth, Dr. Douglas brought up that there's no vacancy. I don't know. I'm not 100% on what the process should be, but the president has nominated Musa Dean. But my whole question is appointing these people, for all the people that are we have been appointing, from the one who replaced Justice Janan to now Musa Dean. What do you, in your view, what is the president looking at to put people on the Supreme Court? This is the nation's highest court. Is it 2029 or what?
Before I go to the issue of the nomination, I wanted to go back to this issue of the glorification of the president.
Okay.
When Madam Salim became president, she said she was going to put an end to this era of an imperial presidency. And it happened not to be going away. Just like you, many other people picked up the issue of the return of Ambassador Boakai. You said we shouldn't call him ambassador, so President-elect JMB back to the country.
Yeah.
And the issue I want to say here is that it costs us money every time the president leaves Liberia and the president returns to Liberia. Because every time the president is leaving Liberia, you see 5, 6, 7 ministers who drive from Monrovia, who go and stand on the red carpet only to shake the hands of the president while he's entering the plane. And then when the president comes back, a similar number of ministers will leave. It's costing us money for them to drive to the airport. It's costing us time in terms of what work they're avoiding. They're supposed to be in the office.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah, they're supposed to be in the offices signing papers so that processes can go through. But they will leave all of that and travel. So in addition to the money we are paying for the president to travel, we are using all of these additional resources for the president to go out of the country and come back. Everybody have to, and it's not only the presidency that is glorified, even the ministers. When they leave the ministries, nothing happens until they come back. So it's costing us a lot of resources just to go and shake the president's hand to go and come back to the country. And we really hope that JMB will not continue this pattern of taking his entire cabinet to see him off and to welcome him back. The president comes back to the country, he comes back on Thursday. Sunday is service. You have to organize another service, Thanksgiving service. Everybody go and worship and pray. Then Sunday again, you all go back to church. It's taking up a lot of time that we need to be doing other things.
Dividing Kenny.
Right. So I think looking forward to 2024, we hope that JMB can put an end to this so that the ministers can sit and do their work. And that's what happens when everybody wants to be around the president. President Weah is to Jamaica Resort. Everyone is there. The entire government is left vacant because the real work is not done. Nobody wants to leave so that the other person gossips about them and they lose their job. So they happen to be serving the president rather than serving the state. And in the end, the entire government breaks down. So we really hope that these things can be put to an end. And then you watch Facebook these days, you see some kind of coalition for the defense of JMB. Why does he need a defense? He was elected by the Liberian people. Let him just do the job rather than looking for people to defend him on Facebook and all of that. And then you have people calling, I'm the president for the Regular Callers Association. What are you calling for? Participation, yes, but of course, we need to find a way to participate better than just calling. On the issue of the nomination of Councillor Musa Dean, I think this is well played. This is well played because I really don't see the urgency for which the Senate was called back. It was meant for it to be for the national budget because the budget needed to be passed. But they had earlier taken a decision that the budget should be moved forward to the 55th legislature. Just as the counter meet was done, I think the elected government requested that it be postponed, just like was done in 2018. That was accepted. The budget also, they say, is going to be moved forward because if the budget doesn't pass, you can use 112 to run the government based on the amount that will pass the previous year. So the Ministry of Finance can still move ahead. So if the budget was the major issue for which they were called and it did not get debated to be passed, why was it extended by 1 more week? And people are saying that when President Weah was lighting the candle, I think a week or so, a few days ago, Councillor Nangbe was there. So it was like maybe he was a little heftier, now he's improving. So why is it that at this point in time, when he was seen out in public and moving with the president, he suddenly comes back to say, okay, I'm no longer capacitated to serve in this position. I'm asking for early retirement. But on the issue of the letter, I have seen 2 letters, one written to the president, asking the president to grant him the permission to retire early from the Supreme Court bench. I've also seen a letter that went to the Chief Justice. The thing that is now being questioned is that did President Weah accept the request for retirement before nominating Councillor Musa Dean? That's the letter we've not seen in the public. Because the earlier point that was made, even on e-marshal, was that he resigned. But he's saying, no, he did not resign. He asked for early retirement. So if he asks for early retirement, the president needs to approve that before a vacancy can be created to remove him from the bench before the nomination is done. But nobody has seen that letter from the president saying to him, yes, I accept because of your health condition. And in his letter, he said he has been away from Liberia for up to 8 months. He's been in Ghana taking treatment. So if this letter from the president cannot come out to say, yes, I approve this, and then the nomination is done, then it goes back to this whole issue of President Weah government, the way they approach issues, the mistakes that they make. So there is a whole confusion. How will the Senate then confirm it, even open, like Dak is saying? How can they open a hearing on his nomination where it's not very clear whether there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court bench? Or is there going to be 2 persons serving? On the previous appointment, all of that with Councillor Janelle replacement, it was political. He removed one tribal person from there, put the other tribal person there. And on the point of judicial philosophy, I think much of the problem is that our academics in Liberia, most of the people don't write. So even if somebody has a philosophy, you don't know. We shouldn't be judging your political or your legal philosophy based on the cases they participate in. You should be writing and publishing what you believe in, so we know what you believe in. But since we don't do that a lot, it's difficult to know what anybody's philosophy is, just as our political parties. They only have philosophies. So we regard people as experts in Liberia, but they don't write anything, they don't publish anything, and we just move ahead as a society, like Ahmed was saying. So it's just a culture. We just keep moving on. But I just think, I think on the councillor or Dean issue, I mean, he was the justice minister. Everything we're talking about, Igbo math, all the wrong things that happen, HPS, he signed on all of these documents. And just when you are leaving tomorrow, you put him on the bench. If we need to ask him question, who are we going to ask? So it's a very critical situation.
Right. And that brings me to Mr. Sia. You want to ask something? Because I wanted to just inject in institutions. It's cabinet ministers. Go ahead, Mr. Sia.
And then I'll be brief on this issue. Dr. Duke raised a good point there, whether or not there is a vacancy constitutionally or legally. He is contending that that must be done before the president can appoint. But Thomas also said, well, there are two letters to the effect that this man is as resigned, but then on the e-Marshal website. But I saw the communication talking about his resignation. The president may have acted because the man might have actually resigned, and he must have actually accepted the resignation. That's why he acted. But Duke is saying, well, accepting it might not be enough. There has to be a process, maybe coming from the Supreme Court, informing the president that there's a vacancy here, or through the Senate. I don't know anything about that, but I think his contention here is there must be a vacancy in order for the president to act. I hope that is done. One can only assume that's why the president is acting. If not, then he's acting unconstitutionally. The issue about judicial philosophy, Thomas spoke eloquently. Our people writing, when we talk about judicial philosophy, we hear these things through decisions they make, rulings that have been made, writing, opinions that they write. That's how we know where they stand. In Liberia, they don't write at all, so we don't know. The only thing we can point to is the people, their record. What kind of lawyer has he been? Just a Nangwe now, who is resigning, for the entire time he was senator for Sano County, he was sick. This man has been battling illness for over 15 years. It is by the special grace of God, I would think that's why he's still alive. I know him, but he's been sick. And Nangwe should not have been appointed to the Supreme Court, by the way. When Nangwe was serving as lawyer, I remember he was a lawyer for some foreigners who committed a crime, and he allowed these individuals to escape Liberia while he was their lawyer. So when President Weah appointed him, I had a serious disagreement. How can you appoint this man who allowed criminals to flee our country on his watch? I believe when they were apprehended, he went to their defense, and they were in his custody, released the individuals to him, and he guaranteed the state that whenever they were needed, he would produce their living body in court. But on Nangwe's watch, those individuals were escaped, and President Weah appointed him. Musa Dean, many said that he's a practicing lawyer in Liberia. He has the qualification whatsoever. I don't want to doubt that, But what I know is that as I follow Musa Dean was the one who said that, look, even the Iboma money you people talking about, whether it coming from the devil, we would take it. That's a lawyer saying that whether the money was being acquired through water, from fraudulent, or firm, he won't mind but to accept it. How can a lawyer speak like that? That, we don't care about the source of the money, whether the source is questionable, we'll take the money anyway. No lawyer speak. I would not appoint a lawyer who talks like that. And another thing I know is that when the $25 million report was released by the GAC, the General Auditing Commission of Liberia, I read that report. I'm not a financial guy, but I read that report. The report was clear, very clear to anybody who's reading that. Some of the money were misappropriated by individuals. The finance ministry said they have given some money. But Musa Dean clearly said that a penny did not go missing and nothing was misappropriated. And I held my head. I said, wow, a lawyer would do this. He did that because he was protecting the government that he was serving in. And for a lawyer to have done that publicly, I don't trust him that he will stand for the truth. And when someone is to be a Supreme Court judge, that person should stand for the truth. And I don't think Musa Dean has been standing for the truth. He has been standing for his pocket in so many instances. I rest my case.
Mr. Wesley, do you think the Senate will confirm him?
What do we expect of a Senate that is reminiscent of Banana Republic? You know, how you got it? The folks in that Senate have no scruples, quite frankly, and so
you may be held in contempt.
Sure, they, outside the ambit, they will hold me in contempt.
Comrade, be careful. Waka may appoint you, and you may not get that confirmation.
No. Baga still got a lot of UP people jostling for position. He can't grab a Gongolo man and just appoint him like that. You know.
But the Gongolo people on the train.
That is for another day.
All right. So one thing I want to add before we bring in our callers here is, and I was preparing for the show and talking to people, and somebody said, what we noticed with WIA is institution. The minister really did not work. Everything was centered around the presidency. If he has sport park, it's for him and his chief of protocol. So we did not really see the ministers actually coming out to work. And because of that, if things got spoiled, we blame him because we did not see ministers, taking the lead and being held accountable. So the person said, we are destroying institutions. It was just individuals. Dr. Dukley, you've been around government for a long time.
No, I think
what you saw with the ministers under President Weah, and what's your resolution for the ministers under Buakai?
I think if you ask us here, we're 6 on this platform, to name 4 ministers on the Weah government, nobody can tell you, except the one who's been sanctioned. You can't. We don't know anybody else. We know Twe, we know agriculture, we know who else do you know? Education, health.
I mean, education has completely disappeared. I don't hear about him.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. I think the problem we have, the problem Buakai faces, would be to resurrect institutions in the country, to make them work. I mean, I'm not talking about you are like below 0 now. You're like -5 institutional works. We are destroyed the country more than you can ever imagine. He destroyed institutions. He destroyed the governance process. He destroyed that capacity of thinking of people and say, we can do this. It was all about where. If you don't talk about Mr. Twe, you don't talk about McGill, you don't talk about Bill Twe, you don't talk about Finda, Akoji, who else you talk about? In the government, nobody in 6 years. Every institution has been trampled down to 0. To GAC made reports, nothing. They can't even do report. They can't even publish them. They say you do your auditing, but you keep it to yourself. They have, for in the 5-6 years, who knows what GAC has been doing? PCCC, 0. LACC went after people in the government. What they did, they dissolved the LACC and put new people in there to protect themselves. And now he's comforting his position in the Supreme Court to make sure that it does not get hunted down. And of course, in the legislature, they want to keep the House through Fonatic Kofa to make Buakai totally dependent on them as an agenda. So that's the problem the country has to face. 223 is about realizing how bad this government, outgoing government, was in terms of destroying institutions of the republic. It did exactly the same thing that Doe did. People may not like it, but this is how Doe left power. When he left, there was nothing standing. And when Weah leaves, every government institution has to be rebuilt from zero, to be reorganized and refocused on national development. That's where we are. That's my thinking about it.
Right. Tom, I remember the late Mobutu Vlad Nyimpa was a public works, and there were attempts that the public work minister does not need to be seen. It should be the president. I don't know. I mean, and I was thinking about especially the education minister. I mean, when it first started, we used to hear Dr. Sony, but now it's nothing. It's like people telling you, hey, hush, sit down. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think when we were discussing the other day on why we are lost, this is one issue that I mentioned, that we are undermining the public bureaucratic infrastructure that is in Liberia, and it ended up hurting him because instead of building strong institutions, he wanted to build these strong men who could deliver counties to him. Bill Tuawe, you deliver River Cess. Nathaniel Magay deliver Bone County. Thomas Fowler deliver Lofa County to us. And in that process, they had to channel the resources not through the bureaucratic process that needed resources to work, but through these strong men. And in the end, things are difficult in the country, but yet the strong men needed to do what they were doing for Weah to win the election. And so the people could not really grapple with this. That things are so difficult. There are no supplies in our schools. There are no drugs in our hospital. But these strong men are implementing projects all over the country. And so it really came back to hurt Weah himself. So all of the institutions were undermined, even outside the integrity institutions, the traditional ministries. There are some people who were appointed head of ministries, agencies, and commissions, and they never had a staff meeting for 6 years under George Weah. People just went to work when they wanted to go to work. Even the issue of attendance. They used to have attendance tracking at these various ministries and agencies and commissions. When you go to work, you register your name. But there were people who were no longer doing that. You just needed to wear the beret and you go to work anytime you wanted to go to work. So these institutions have been undermined, and they were not only undermined by building these strong men, they were undermined by appointing incompetent people who had no idea how to run the institutions. And so in the end, the institutions collapsed. Even with the national budget, they will put the money in the national budget. This ministry will have 5 or 6 million, but in the end, you don't get the money. And so the ministries will go through the fiscal year, they won't even develop an income statement. So if there's no income statement for a ministry, how do you then audit them? So even all these things we're talking about audit is going to be very difficult because Weah was channeling the money through offshore accounts that were not even managed by the state. So it's going to be extremely difficult. Those institutions are completely demoralized. They've been broken down. The procedures and processes that were put in place for those institutions to run, everything broke down. In the end, when they built light pole, it was George Weah. Far back before 2023, all the light poles in the country, they had George Weah poster on it, George Weah project. And this is why I was contending with one of your panelists the other day. After the county tour, he came back and put up to $20 million in his budget, the Ministry of State, that they should deliver services. But the Ministry of State is nice. They only deliver services to the president. Why are you giving them all that money to build the park and everything? And this is my concern. Even with the parks that he has opened, who's going to manage them? Because they are for George Weah. They are not under the Ministry of Youth and Sport. They are not under the city corporations.
Thank you, man.
So we have a major problem. The institutions were broken down. Like has been said, we have to rebuild them.
Thank you. Let me bring in a few callers. After that, Mr. Seli will tell us where we go from here with institution being destroyed. If you want to see the president, whatever you want to do, things that used to go through other ministries, got to go through the rescue mother. But let me bring on our callers here to hear their take. And Carlos, what's your reflection 2023 and what you make of 2024 coming? Let me start with Elvis Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Ja, and hello to your panelists. I would say quickly to Thomas. Thomas, if you volunteer yourself to show the people all the offshores that come that we are, smuggle our money through, since you know that you smuggle it through offshores that come. But look, 2023 was a great year. It was a great inflection point for our democracy. We all was active in the diaspora on Liberian politics. It culminated with the election happening in October and November, and we went through a relatively smooth democratic process. And I think everything that we talked about from the beginning of the year, to the end of the year, it came through our elections, and we saw what the people was thinking. 20,000 people voted for boycott. The onus is now on him to put the country in the right direction. I wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm sure most of you on the platform know this. Boycott, I have people living in Liberia, in that very community. I grew up. I used to spend time at my uncle's house in rehab. Boycott House has been that way for over 30 years. Haven't had much done to it. Right now, as we speak, his house is under renovation. He's not even living there. Same thing that George Weah did with his house in Sinclair. Everybody was talking about it. Boycott is doing it right now. Never did it when he was in opposition for 6 years. Once he became president,
he's not president yet. He's not president yet, Mr.
As a president-elect.
Right. So he's not using national resources. Right? You would think, right? The difference is Weah was in power.
Okay, so you assume he's using national resource.
No. I said Weah was in power.
No. That's the point that I'm making is, if an elected official start doing anything of using the resources on himself, it must be stolen money.
No. The two things you are comparing are not the same. That's why I'm pointing you to.
The point here is, he was vice president. He didn't renovate his house. When he even had the means to do it. He became president-elect, and he's renovating his house. And there's rumors that there are Lebanese people who are giving him the money to renovate his house.
All right.
And that's against the emoluments clause. Don't. Why are you pushing me off the line? Anyway,
no, I gotta pick other colors because you are saying rumors, right?
But I barely have 30 seconds to say my points. When other people are talking, when people are quoting the president rules on the show,
no, you are the first caller here.
You don't push back. The moment I say anything, you want to dialogue with me on the phone. It's not fair, Mr. John. Okay. You don't do that.
All right.
Allow me to make my point of view, and then you let me go off the phone. But I will end it there because it's always been a pushback every time I call. It's like, you guys don't let me call on the show. Maybe I'll stop calling.
Okay. All right. Aliyu Kamara.
I began myself talking, I was sitting in the back, doing lead actor, and that made sense. But it still won't get to focus on that. But anyway, listen, Liberian, let to go back. Let's clarify that. 2005 election, Liberian did not go back to NPP. 2017 election, the Liberians voted for CDC. So it is only now that the Liberians are voting for Joseph Yuma Walker, given that they tested what a good foundation actually means in terms of setting the basis for future development. The road to RIA was never completed under LA.
What's your reflection of 2023?
Yeah, but I'm talking, and you will let me talk. So,
what power you have?
Monrovia all the way to Buchanan, LA fixed it. Yeah, I don't know how you don't know that one day. The airport went on a 2-year. LA didn't complete the airport. The airport did not start in 2006. 2016, I went to Liberia. The airport was already complete. What they had was logistics, or they were waiting for the appropriate logistics to begin to run the terminal. And then George Weah took over, refused to bring in those logistics. He started running the terminal, but the terminal was already built. Looking back on some other things here, Anthony here, you got scholarly people on the show already who know better than me. They have already elaborated on most of those things. Ahmed has.
Just tell your own now, Aliyu. Forget about Ahmed own. Tell your own.
Okay, let me talk. So you can enjoy hearing me talk my own. Let me talk my own. So what happened in 2020? Well, I can tell you now at this particular point in time, my focus right now is on critiquing Joseph Boakai and holding Joseph Boakai's feet to the fire, making sure he lived up to at least 80% of those things that he promised during the election. But 2023 was very good for me personally, but it wasn't good for Liberia. That's my reflection. But thank you so much for having me, Dennis.
Thank you. Callers, please be brief now. We have more callers calling in. Flomo, you have a minute, please. Your reflection.
Yeah. Well, my reflection for 2023 personally was good. Thank God. For the country, it was not good. I'm glad that they were able to remove George Weah. 2024, I'm expecting a better leadership from Joseph Boakai. It gave people, average knowledge users allege that it gave people no evidence that JB getting money for 11 people to renovate his house. I hope we can send that evidence to you so we can see. Look, for me, the only disappointment coming to me, like the 2023, is George Weah appointing the justice minister and whatsoever. He just sent out a letter saying that they should freeze hiring. How can he break his own rule? Like the same letter he wrote, the communication he wrote, that they shouldn't hire no one should spend more than $10,000. So why is he breaking the same rules? The same letter he just sent out that no one should hire. Why is he appointing people? He's breaking the rules. Why can't you wait for the next government are coming in to take that, our responsibility?
No,
he's
still president. He can appoint. All right.
My question is that why would he send a letter saying that no one should hire, no one should appoint no one in any ministry anywhere? Why would he send it? Yeah, why you can't just wait until when you start all before you get sent it? But you can't send a letter saying no one should do this, and you the same person going around breaking the same rules.
Thank you.
What's the point?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jemima.
Hello?
Hello. Go ahead. You're live.
Yeah, this is Jemima. I just have something to say here. First of all, I just want to say thank God for new leadership that is coming up. What I'm going to tell the Liberian people is that Joshua, for the past 6 years, has brought his football skill to the political scene to dribble the Liberian people for 6 years and literally lose the country. Okay? Joshua had dribbled the Liberian people because, when it comes to our people, they come across to be very gullible. It's like Liberians, we don't even have the ability to critically think. We don't even have the insight. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is a time that the Liberian people really need to sit back and really begin to really, think about the nation itself. And Mr. Denny was saying something earlier about, the kind of celebration that Liberians are giving to the leaders in the country, that kind of worship type. When I saw the number of people that was at the airport to go receive Mr. Boakai, I was like, okay, Father, please tell me this is not going to happen for 6 years. Are you telling me the Liberians are going to spend all 6 years just following this man, and that they are not going to take their notebook, their pencil, and brainstorm what they're going to achieve for that 6 years? Are they going to spend the next 6 years dancing in the streets like they did for Joshua while the man was looting our country? It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say is that they need to audit Claria. They need to audit this woman to see how much money that her husband stole from these Liberian people. You know what I'm saying? Joshua was paying himself $1.5 million through his wife. Okay?
You made it. You made it.
Don't be gullible anymore. Don't be gullible. You got to have wisdom here. The Lord Jesus said wisdom is justifier of his children. We cannot live this illiterate lifestyle. We cannot be illiterate. Okay? We have to better educated people. We need to stop being so naive. Okay? And this is the last I'm going to say.
All right, quickly.
This is what I'm going to tell Mr. Boakai. That 95% or 98% of the businesses in Liberia should be owned by the Liberians. The Lebanese have eaten enough of our nation wealth. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me take the last caller now. Perkins. D. Perkins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jai, and good evening to all the panelists. I'm calling from North Dakota. I enjoyed the last caller when she said George Weah brought his football skills to dribble the Liberian people for 6 years, which is clearly true. Now, the one thing that really baffles me right now is the nomination of Musa Dean. We all sitting here and hoping and praying that the new administration will audit the outgoing administration, the George Weah administration, because of corruption, lawlessness, and you name them. Now, and I was watching another show, and people were praising George Weah because the nomination is political, is a good chess move. Yes, we can agree. But one thing we as Liberians have shown right now is we want a change. So we went and voted for Joseph Boakai to come be president. I think somebody in the world or in America, one president said, just don't ask what can your country do for you, but what can you also do for your country. Mm-hmm. Now that Joseph Boakai is president, we all want to sit back, throw our hands, and watch him change everything like Jesus. That's not going to work. So the same energy we had and we came and voted, we should maintain that same energy and help the new administration to make some changes. I'm saying that to say, if the nomination right now, like the Doc said and someone's emphasized on, so the Justice Association who is taking an early retirement send his letter to the president make that letter public. Now, if the president acceptance letter can be in private, then that is unconstitutional. So if you accept the letter is public, so your response to that letter should also be public before that seat can be officially vacant for any nominee.
Thank you.
So what can we do right now, we as Liberians, to start the Senate? Because as we know the Senate, at least...
What's your
Let me end on this point right quick.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead quickly.
Yeah, what can we do as people right now to start this Senate from confirming Musa Dean? Because as we know, a lot of things are happening in the country with bogus deal and stuff. Musa Dean is at the core of many of these things. So at some point, we need to come to answer questions. So now if he goes on the bench, then it makes it difficult. So the correction that we're trying to fight right now, George Weah and his guys are playing it smart by putting people that can answer questions and bring light to these things in position so that we cannot go forward. And when that happens, then the audit cannot bring up a sustainable result. And then we'll end up blaming Joseph Boakai and say, oh, he audited the people and he said nothing wrong. Because all these loopholes that are supposed to bring answers that we are looking for, George Weah is now colliding them with his own people. So, one guy said we should go from district to district and let our people know, let them go to the city hall and petition their senators, especially these senators that already been voted out that are leaving. They care less of what they do right now. So that's what we should do instead of just folding our hands and watching the Senate to confirm this guy. Because obviously, if the Senate cannot even say to the president that, listen, the seat is not vacant as we know it, but they will go and have a discussion on that. Then they're going to confirm the guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
2023 year, or 2023 year, it ended well. It started bad. It ended well because of that deal.
Thank you.
We are looking forward to working together in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Whew. That was a long one. Mr. We stopped somewhere that I wanted you to pick up from, and what we look forward to 2024 when it comes to this, what we were discussing earlier about the ministers, the institutions. And
I think Thomas and Dr. Ducle kind of started us well on that route. I wouldn't go as far as saying, there's nothing they have to start from scratch, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done before in these ministries and agencies and commissions and autonomous bodies. Ministries, agencies, commissions, and these public corporations are established. The infrastructure is there for a reason. If they all work well, people understand the statutory rules, and there's sufficient uh, funds, and these funds are managed well. That's the totality of governance and government working. So the structures are put there for a very good reason, for very good reasons. When we saw the breakdown or the lack of function, the lack of the deliberate with hoarding of funds, of course, you don't get those functionaries working. You don't get those institutions working because you have to lubricate the machine for the machine to work right. First of all, you put a good steward in charge, and then you lubricate it, and then you put a software in place, which is the policy, the enabling legislations and things like that. All of that didn't work, but the institutions are there. The laws that created them are there. The functions are clearly spelled out. Budget is law, so you hold a budget until you get in office, and then revisit that, recast everything, and fund the government. Funding the government means funding these institutions, staffing them with people who are able, are competent, who have experience, and some scintilla of integrity. You do that, you're starting somewhere, in my view. Now, they're not going to be perfect people here because they're the same very Liberians, some of whom we've seen in previous administrations. And, some of these individuals have public records that allegations against some of these names that we will probably see. So I'm not here to say that a Joseph Barker batch will be the best Liberia has ever produced. We hope it is. We hope it's inclusive, it's diverse, and the slate is very well thought out.
Thank you. That leads us to our Tabata of the week. But before we start the Tabata, I just want to play for you. We're talking about glorification. We're talking about other things. I want to play a video for you, and let me know what you make of it. And then as you prepare your Tabata of the week. Oops.
Or senior members of the.
Oh man. We are having some audio issue here, but that was a group called itself Movement to Protect Ambassador Weah's Legacy.
Yeah. There is, before the Tabata, can I say something on a serious note about a tragedy that occurred at Totota yesterday or 2 days ago? The fuel tanker tragedy. It was truly, truly a tragedy. And I want to join the many millions of Liberians who are sending their condolences to families and to that community and to Liberia. What I saw, I was watching that live, and the guy was questioning, is this legal? Is this legal? And I was yelling, this is not about legality, this is about public safety. Who's there to say, stay off? This is dangerous. This is a bomb that's about to explode. Later I realized there were some police people trying to get people off, but that was what I was screaming above my lungs, hoping. Obviously, I was on video, nobody was hearing me, right? But to me, it's really part of what we've been talking about: public safety failure. When government fails its people, there are consequences. There are consequences. Now, somebody will say, "Oh, you're blaming the government. The people were greedy," but it's that sort of systemic thing that we all talk about, and everybody says, "Oh, corruption is perception." This idea that something like that is supposed to be free, go there and get yours. But then, where is law enforcement? Where is the authority that will spot that danger right away and exert all effort to make sure that people are aware this is dangerous, get away from it? But instead, mostly young people were trooping in there. And, somebody said to me, but Salif, this is poverty, public safety failure, a combination of all kinds of things that led to this tragedy. And, it happened in Sierra Leone a year ago, 2 years ago. It's happened in Nigeria, similar thing previously. Unfortunately, now it has happened with us in Liberia. I just hope that our government, the new administration, for example, can institute a law, some kind of, for instance, this is a country where we sell gasoline in open containers in all corners of the country. You're driving on the roadside, somebody has 5 gallons sitting under their table with some 2 bottles open. That is a bomb as well. It may be a smaller bomb, but it's very similar to what we saw happen in Tabata. And if this tragedy, unfortunately, can lead to some kind of correction of some of these public safety problems that we have, I think it will go a long way to help me. Imagine, even here in the U.S., burn units, burn victims, that kind of injury, it requires specialized skills, resources set up to take care of people. And then over there, we don't have all what it takes to cater to the victims. So I just wanted to lift that up tonight.
Thank you. Yes, we are today in Monrovia. We carry out street interviews asking about that, and people were saying, "Hey, this it happens all the time in Liberia. When even there are accidents, people go there. Even if the people are struggling for their lives, they are looking for cell phones. They are looking for different things, and it's a tragedy. Partly law enforcement." And all the things that are happening in the country. And so this is a tragedy. Our hearts goes out to the families affected. At this point, we're going to go into our Tabata of the week. The Tabata is any nonsense that you observed during the week that you want to talk about. Let me start with Mr. CF, your Tabata of the week.
Dennis, my Tabata of the week probably will be everybody's Tabata of the week. This glorification of our leaders that we talk about. I have thought that we were taking a break from people who are officials of government forming line at the airport to see President Weah leave, and then we'll gather there again to welcoming him back in the country. I thought we have come to the end of it with Joseph Yimambuaka. For me to have seen potential officials of government, line up at the airport to see Joseph Boakai, coming back into the country. It is a Tabata that is disgraceful. And I just hope that we will not have to see this again, because they have started it, they will continue it. I don't know, Boakai has to see them at the airport to appoint them, or is that how he will know that they are working? I don't know. This is a Tabata, it must stop.
Thank you. I was talking to a former law enforcement officer, and he said, this is the first time I'm seeing like the chief of police accompanying the president. If you are like bodyguard now, then what? Who is at the command post? So this is serious. Dr. Dukley, your Tabata of the week. You unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
In 2005 or 2006, after her first trip to the U.S., President Sirleaf said, "I don't want to see anyone at the airport if you're not working, like protocol or security." So nobody went to ever meet President Sirleaf for her 12 years in government. So I hope Boakai will come back to that position. No one. There was no band, no military band, no reception, nothing. It was just a small press corps that was put in a van from the mansion to the airport, and with the protocol people, and there was no minister. She said, "You have your work to do. Don't drive from Monrovia to come. What are you going to come and meet me for?" So I hope, Boakai goes back to that, because he was part of that administration. My Tabata of the week is the appointment of Musa Dean as on the Supreme Court judge, bench. That's a stupidity of the first kind. You say, yeah, president has the right to appoint, but when you have 20 days away from turning of power, you don't appoint people to the Supreme Court. I mean, even Trump had not, that decency. There's some place you say, cut it short. This is the this epitomizes what where has been doing for the last 6 years. He doesn't care. There's no thinking. There's no reflection. There's no what does that mean for our system? You live in power, go. Just go. Musadin is linked to many issues that happened during the last 5, 6 years. He's going to be investigated for those issues. No matter how you look at it, he's going to be audited. So how are you going to take him from there and put him into the Supreme Court to protect you or to protect him? So that's my thought about
that. Thank you. And we're learning also that Samura Wolo calling for LRA. I saw a report like that. I don't know if that's true. Thomas, what's your Tabata of the week?
Mine is on the joint presidential transition team issue. I mean, there was a lot of hype around the issue of the transition. The president issued the executive order, and then the president-elect submitted his name of 20 presidents who were going to be on the joint presidential transition team. But it then happened that after all of that hype and expectation that we had for the transition, it was only yesterday, the 27th, that people actually started to meet those ministries, agencies, and commission. And I listened to John, the former Auditor General, and he said the reason is that when Madam Salif won, it was about the same time, if not the same date, that engagement between the outgoing government and the incoming government actually took place. So it's almost like President Weah is saying, the same time that Madam Salif gave me is the same time I'm going to give you, even though the context is a little different, because Madam Salif election, I think the runoff election was very close to Christmas or something. So I mean, the context is a little different. So to say the same timing that the transition meeting started happening should happen at the same time, when you consider long ago and everybody is celebrating you that you are leaving and you are a very good president, to me it did not make sense, because these people have been appointed. What have they been doing? And then between now and January 10, I don't know what they will really achieve in terms of gathering the kind of information that they need to gather.
And things like that, we will expect the Boaka team to publish that. I mean, come forward with it. We don't want to work behind the house anymore. Let's know so that we can boo the people that are not doing the right thing. That's what I think. Mr. Salif, what's your Tabata of the week?
I wrote about that. They should have read my article, follow it. They created a framework. They didn't. Obviously.
Yeah.
So
and when we started to ask questions about this transition, now they say, "Oh no, you don't have to hear anything. They're working behind the curtains."
Yeah.
Now there we go.
No, my Tabata is about this cultural ambassador thing.
Please don't.
I just been here reading and over here there. Somebody has been cultural ambassador for 25 years or 30 years. Maybe there's no law, no system to say, there's term limit and somebody has to leave office so that another person can take office. But the names we're hearing out there, some of whom are bombastic talk show hosts on other shows. I don't know what to make of it. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. And like John Molu tried to understand the TOR for the cultural ambassador and the term limit issue. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Wesley, your Tabata of the week.
Quite frankly, when we remind people that we are turning our country into a circus, they think that we got something personal against Mr. Weah and his bunch of incompetent people. At the legislature, you had a speaker, the deputy speaker, who worked together for 6 years, almost 6 years, to put it that way, because the local Bond County representative sought a Senate seat, and then Kofa became deputy speaker. But Kofa and Chambers worked together. and Chambers were fine. When Anthony Williams booted Chambers out, Chambers was finding scapegoat, and he found it on Kofa. And so, my Tabata of the week, when the Chambers get to know that Kofa is a dishonest man, that Kofa says is a lawyer to nearly all of the public corporations in our country, and that President Weah was not firm enough in making sure that Kofa was reined in. So this goes to tell you the kind of rotten system we had, even at the national legislature, the speaker and the deputy speaker in a war of words in the press over who is honest and who is dishonest, and reducing our country into just another puppetry. That's my Tabata of the week.
Maybe those are the kicks of a dying bull. Sam Wallow, who always think that we should praise sing Mr. Buaka, is saying, my Tabata of the week is FOL's ongoing vocal doubts of the incoming administration's intentions, while at the same time refusing to acknowledge the intentional, modest inaugural service at the Capitol building, which is a positive sign of fiscal responsibility, or President-elect Buaka's rejection of the Weah administration offer to pay his transition team members stipends. Are these not positive sign of fiscal responsibility FOL can acknowledge? That too in itself is. My Tabata is not that they went to sing Christmas carol to the president's house, and the president was even inviting them for some matchmaking. He said the army people are single. But my Tabata is this, at that level, you go to the president's house and you are singing Nigerian songs. Come on now. I love the cruise songs. I love it. But I think at some point we should really put Liberia first so that historians who will watch this thing 50 years from now will not think that we speak Igbo or something in Liberia. To me, that's Tabata. Well, gentlemen, those are your reflections. I want us to end on this as your final comments. Is your 2024 resolution. Dr. Dugle.
My resolution for 2024 is that Liberia will find its place back into a nation of responsibility, a responsible leadership that will focus on people's need, a country that will follow the rule of law, and also just do the basic things that you don't need big hospitals. You need small healthcare centers. You don't need 10,000 universities. You need schools that function at a community level. That we start looking at development not as building 10,000 buildings and stuff, but really taking care of the people's basic needs. That development is, what can you do? Sustainability. Can you provide aspirin? Can you provide water? Can you provide this health service at the basic level? The government will focus on that instead of trying to run around in the world trying to find support that doesn't exist really. Then we focus that we bring development at the level of the nation, at the level of the people, not so much as trying to go up and down. I think it's going to take a long time to get out of the mess that Mr. Weah put the country in. And nobody should think that Boka is going to do any magic in the next 6 months, rarely, 6-7 months. We just to appoint the right people to get government functioning and to break away from this culture of inefficiency, stupidity, and bad management. And that's going to take it's some time. And I hope the government will just focus on giving Liberians confidence in themselves and in their country, rather than thinking, oh yeah, we got $1 million coming from the IMF or the World Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas, your resolution for 2024.
Yeah, before I go to my resolution, I just wanted to say
Hey, man, everything now before you go to the...
No, seriously. If
go
he's
ahead.
if he's sitting waiting for accounts that were created outside the public financial management system, let him just wait for the audit. He does not understand how the PFM system works. So when people talk about these things, it's just all about protecting George Weah. Every time you talk about George Weah, he gets in his feelings. So let him wait for the audit. You will see all the accounts. On the issue of my resolution, I would really look forward to us having a governance system that the people can be put in the center of that governance system. Because if we say we are practicing democracy, government for the people, by the people, then the people should be part of it. We can't have a system where we just invite them into the process during the electoral time, and then after that, they go back to the market as consumers. We don't respect their views. We don't encourage them to participate in the processes of decision making on how the country is run. I don't think that is a democratic process. Even though we have people will say it's a representative government, we elect people, but there are countries that have the same kind of government that we have. They have a very decentralized system, a devolved system where citizens participate at the local level. They have participatory budget processes where citizens participate in resource allocation. I would like the new government to be able to put the people at the center of this new Liberia, because there's a lot of hype. Okay, we have a new Liberia. It's going to be a new Liberia. But that new Liberia should not just be for the people in Monserrado or in Monrovia and the capital cities. It should include all Liberians, regardless of what part of Liberia they are in, Bapolo Forest or Maryland. So I'm really looking forward to a governance system that will start in 2024 as of January 22 that is much more inclusive and participatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wesley, your resolution.
I will prefer to anchor my resolution on President-elect Joe Baka's philosophy of love Liberia, think Liberia, and build Liberia. A love for Liberia comes with integrity and believing the people who elected you to serve them. And when you think Liberia, there should be a reflection of the governance system, the entire governance machinery that the CDC has decapitated. And when we should have loved Liberia and thought of Liberia, of course, the pathway for building Liberia becomes irreversible.
Mr. C, your resolution for 2024.
Then is that the incoming administration will shake tables, be serious about governance, and that they will be intentional about how they lead our people. Let the government function to the true sense of what function is, or if I want to go to recruitment, to the true sense of functionality. Let the people do the job. I don't want to see anybody at RRA waiting for president or seeing president bye-bye. I don't want to see people sinking at his president's house because it's a birthday. I don't want to see that. Let the people go to work. Let the government work for the people.
Do you want to see a sermon from the president?
I don't want to see a sermon from his church. I want to see him at the executive mansion addressing issues. I hope that there's a statement from the president-elect about the tragedy that we talk about. That is a national tragedy. I read somewhere that about 40 people died. I hope he will not play we are and not say a word. 40 persons, 40 of your citizens, that's a huge number. That deserves the president-elect's attention to speak. I know people can say there's one person at a time, but you, the incoming president, don't play we are.
And sometimes it is that impatient now, because for the past 6 years, president can talk to us, only sermons. So if you're not Christian now, you should leave your own with God. So, Mr. Salih, you're closing.
Yeah, but to Anthony's point, the flag should come to have staff, give national tribute to this is one of those children could have grown, become president, and done great things for the country. Those are our citizens. That's what I'm talking about.
And Mr.
Look,
Salif, because of the country we have, where we blame victims, right? People are
yes,
so desensitized now. People are so insensitive to issues. So when that happened, and we have the tape. We interview people. They say, "Oh, I blame them."
yes.
They
I
always,
imagine that.
even the government, even our leaders, you can see some of that attitude as
They're
well.
falling prey to that kind of small thinking. I'm sorry to say. Look, my resolution hope for 2024, and it's just 1 year you're asking for, Dennis. But I'm really looking for a national shock therapy of sort.
Hmm.
Like Anthony says, shake the table, really shake the ground. Something that Liberians have never seen before, and to demonstrate to them that this is this is a new era. You know, this is the way a government for the people, by the people, of the people is supposed to be. Like Thomas said, the people are the center of the government are by the people. So that truly these people who will be appointed in Mr. Barker's cabinet, especially the cabinet, these are people who are coming to serve. They are people, not people who will be served. Beyond that, though, that we come to the realization that our country is behind more than how many, decades in the peers in the region, and that in order to begin to make a dent, we have to really shock ourselves in ways that will begin to awaken the consciousness of the ordinary people, of citizens, of those who are serving, that we ought to do something. Is way, way overdue. We're able to do it. We have Liberians who have the wherewithal, or the intellectual capacity, the training, the education, the connections, and the capital and resources to move our country forward, to make it a place where we all will be proud of and want to live and be, referenced as citizens of. That's the kind of administration I'm looking forward to. I know it'll be too early to say, okay, do that kind of thing, but who do I appoint? Who do I invite to serve in the government? What kind of, you set the tone that will give me assurance that going forward we'll begin to see better things.
Thank you. And during the those of us who grew up during the Doe administration, we got used to John Pipe Bear. So everybody was quoting John Bear, even some of the things that he never said because of his the way he spoke. So every time people spoke bad English, people had all kinds of things to say about what John Pipe Bear said. In the we are government, we have Mr. Koji. And now I know we're going to miss that because nobody's going to go up there, have press conference, and speak bad English with confidence. I think that's one of the things. But I didn't see anybody having a resolution that we should have some form of Koji in the new government.
Oh, you're gonna have Koji. Koji said he's gonna be campaigning, so you're gonna have him.
Oh, okay. All right. And my resolution is, the citizens, what we saw this year, or what we like, people are just, it's like, and I want to quote the Bible here that during the time of Judges, they said the people were doing things their own way. It's like we have lost the sense of praising what is good and just booing the bad. I mean, it's like the citizens we've come to a point. I mean, most people that we see on social media come to the point of really praising what is bad. And then there is no reward for, it's like there's no reward for doing good anymore. There's no reward for integrity anymore. So if you can cost the most, you get traction. I mean, if you can be a very good bootlicker, I mean, you are being hailed. If you are doing the right thing, you're being vilified. So what I look forward for the coming year is for our people to wake up and be able to tell somebody, even if they are eating on that person's table, to say, no, this one is wrong. So let's share good things and boo the bad ones. On that note, I want to thank you, gentlemen. Tough Talking Thursday have made it mark. We have had shows all year, and this is the last show. I mean, I can't be any happier with the caliber of people that we're working with here at Focus on Liberia. Always educating, elevating, and promoting all things Liberia. From the bottom of my heart, I say, Epiatato, Seke, Imama, Nicheo. Until then, we'll close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night, and may God richly bless you.
We are Liberians.